the Earthborn girl didn't raise her voice. Only the body count. HFY Sci-Fi. Lena Hale stood at the wide observation window of Border Station K-17 and watched the stars slide past like slow white dust. The station floated between two major trade routes, far from Earth and even farther from comfort. Ships came and went every hour, but the station itself never felt alive. It felt like a cage that forgot it was built to hold people. Lena was small, even by human standards. Her brown work uniform hung loose on her thin frame. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple knot. She carried a data slate under one arm and a tool pouch at her side. Most beings on the station barely noticed her. That was how she survived. She worked as a logistics clerk, a job that meant long hours, low pay, and no authority. Her task was to track cargo, update records, and guide crews to loading bays. She spoke only when needed. When she did speak, her voice was calm and soft. No one ever raised their voice at her, because no one thought she mattered enough. The station was controlled by a powerful alien coalition. They called themselves the Union of Order. To them, humans were recent arrivals to the stars, useful, cheap, and weak. Humans were given the dirtiest jobs and the worst quarters. Complaints went nowhere. Protests ended badly. Lena knew this well. She had learned it long before she came to K-17. That day began like any other. She checked her assignments, nodded to a passing alien supervisor, and walked toward Cargo Bay 7. A human transport ship had arrived early, and the Union wanted a full inspection. The ship was old and patched with different metals. Its name was faded, but Lena recognized the design. A civilian hauler, crewed by 6 humans. They carried food processors and water filters. Nothing dangerous. The inspection team arrived late. They were large armored beings with heavy weapons and sharp voices. Their leader barked orders while his team spread out across the bay. The human crew stood in a line, hands visible, eyes low. Lena stood near a console and waited. She watched the inspection quietly, noting how the guards moved, how often they checked their scanners, where they stood when bored. After 20 minutes, the leader turned and announced that illegal tech had been found. The human captain tried to speak. He said there must be a mistake. He asked for proof. The leader did not answer. He gave a short signal with his hand. The first human fell before the sound of the weapon reached the far wall. There was screaming then. Panic. The crew tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The guards moved with cold skill. In less than a minute, all 6 humans lay dead on the cargo bay floor. Lena did not scream. She did not cry. She stood still, her face blank, her hand steady. She watched every detail. She watched which guard fired first. She watched how long it took for each body to fall. She watched how the leader cleaned his weapon. The Union leader turned to the gathered workers and spoke loudly. "This is what happens to smugglers," he said. "Let this be a lesson." No proof was shown. No record was filed. The bodies were dragged away like broken cargo. Work resumed. Lena returned to her station and finished her shift. She logged out at the proper time. She walked back to the human quarters, a narrow ring of low-ceiling rooms near the station's edge. Inside her room, she sat on the bed and stared at the wall. She stayed there for a long time. She remembered another sky, another station, another group of armed figures who said they were bringing order. She remembered hiding under rubble while her home burned. She remembered learning that shouting did nothing. That night, she did not sleep. The next day, the station ran as usual. Ships docked, cargo moved, Guards patrolled. No one spoke of the dead crew. In the maintenance levels below the main decks, something changed. A sensor node in Corridor 12 went offline. The system flagged it as a minor fault. A repair request was logged and scheduled for later in the week. In the same corridor, a patrol unit failed to report in. The command desk assumed a delay. No alert was raised. Lena walked through the station with her slate and tool pouch. She entered restricted areas using access codes assigned to her role. No one questioned her presence. Logistics clerks went everywhere. In a narrow service tunnel, she stopped and knelt beside an open panel. Inside, cables ran like veins. She adjusted one connector, then another. Her movements were careful and practiced. Further down the tunnel, a guard lay slumped against the wall. His armor was intact. There was no sign of struggle. His weapon rested untouched beside him. His eyes stared forward, empty. Lena stepped over him without looking down. By the end of the day, 3 patrol units were missing. 2 sensor nodes were down. A small weapons locker showed an inventory error. The station command noted the issues and filed routine reports. Border stations were old. Things broke. On the 3rd day, a supply lift jammed between levels. 2 guards entered the lift shaft to investigate. They did not come back. This time, the command desk sent a message asking for status. There was no reply. Lena was in Cargo Bay 3, guiding an alien merchant crew. She smiled politely when spoken to. She apologized for delays. Her hands never shook. In the lower levels, more systems failed. Doors locked and unlocked at the wrong times. Lights flickered. The station AI issued polite warnings and suggestions. A junior officer suggested a possible intruder. The idea was dismissed. There were no signs of forced entry. No alarms. On the 4th day, a cleaning crew found something they were not meant to see. Behind a false wall in a storage alcove, they found 3 bodies. Guards, fully armed, all dead. The station went into partial alert. Patrols doubled. Weapon checks began. Command officers gathered to review footage. The cameras showed nothing useful. In several areas, footage was missing. In others, it showed guards walking into corridors and never coming out. The word predator was used. The word human was not. Lena passed through a security checkpoint with her slate held close to her chest. A guard glanced at her and waved her through. She nodded and kept walking. In a control room far above, an officer reviewed personnel files. He stopped at Lena's name for half a second. Logistics clerk. No record of trouble. No special training listed. He moved on.
That night, the station lost contact with an entire security wing. No alarms sounded.
No emergency lights activated. The systems reported a routine maintenance shutdown. In truth, the wing was silent. Lena walked through it alone. She checked doors, consoles, and bodies. She moved with calm purpose, like someone cleaning a room. At the far end of the wing, she entered a small operations office. She sat at the desk and accessed the station map. Red markers showed patrol routes. Blue markers showed sensors. She studied them quietly. When she was done, she erased her access trail and stood. She returned to the main decks before morning. She changed clothes. She tied her hair back again. She reported for duty on time. The station woke to confusion. Officers argued. Reports conflicted. No one understood how so many guards could vanish without a trace. Lena guided a fuel convoy through Dock 9. She answered questions with short, polite replies. She avoided eye contact, as humans were expected to do. At midday, a Union commander announced increased security measures. He warned that anyone interfering with station operations would face severe punishment. Lena listened from the back of the crowd. Her face showed nothing. That evening, she did not return to her room. Instead, she walked into the maintenance levels once more. She carried no weapon in sight, only her tools and slate. Behind her, the station lights dimmed for a moment, then returned to normal. No one noticed. In a quiet corridor, far from the main traffic, a single security camera blinked off. Border Station K-17 continued to drift through space, unaware that its balance had already tipped. Lena Hale did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Lena Hale moved quietly through the empty corridors of Border Station K-17. The station hummed with its usual machinery, but something felt different. Security checks were heavier. Patrols moved in tighter formations, and officers whispered to each other in low tones. The missing security wing had put everyone on edge, but no one suspected the truth. No one suspected her. She walked as though she belonged, her hands holding her data slate close, eyes scanning every detail. The station was designed for efficiency, with maintenance corridors that twisted beneath the living decks like veins. Lena had memorized them all, every dead end, every ladder, every service hatch. She moved through them with ease, invisible among the chaos she had begun. The day began with minor disruptions. Sensor arrays along the docking bays reported intermittent failures. Patrol bots blinked in and out of operation. A weapons locker in Sector 4 showed inventory errors. Supervisors noted these issues, but none sounded alarms. Old stations always had glitches, they said. Routine maintenance would fix them. Lena did not fix anything. She made the errors happen. She moved silently, adjusting wires, unplugging circuits, and leaving doors open just enough to mislead automated patrols. Her work was precise, calculated. No unnecessary noise. At midday, a new character appeared in the story. Officer Ryan Tal, a young alien analyst with pale blue skin and sharp, attentive eyes, had been assigned to the station to investigate the missing security wing. Unlike others, he noticed the pattern. The failures were too systematic to be accidental. The missing patrols were not scattered. They were eliminated in a specific order. Someone knew exactly how to move through the station without being seen. Ryan studied every report. He watched camera footage repeatedly. He noticed anomalies that others overlooked. Yet, he could not find a single clue about the attacker. Whoever it was, they left nothing. No signs of forced entry. No sounds.
No struggle. Lena passed through the central hub at that time.
She smiled politely at the officers gathered there, answering questions in her quiet, calm voice. She looked unthreatening. Innocuous. That was the key. Every human was considered weak. Every human could be ignored. In the lower maintenance corridors, her actions began to ripple outward. Patrol bots shut down in isolated sectors. Doors sealed unexpectedly. Alarms that should have rung remained silent. 2 guards entered a supply corridor and were never seen again. The AI marked them as missing, but the officers assumed a temporary miscommunication. By evening, Rin had begun following the trail. He pieced together the sequence of failures and disappearances. Whoever was behind this moved with extreme intelligence, patience, and restraint. Ryan noted that the pattern suggested the attacker was human. The thought shocked him. Humans rarely survived long in isolation against the Union's security. Meanwhile, Lena continued her work. She entered the life support sectors and made small, unnoticeable adjustments to environmental controls. No one would feel the effect immediately, but over time it would create panic if left unchecked. Her goal was not immediate death. It was fear, confusion, submission. At the same time, a human engineer named Mark Venn noticed irregularities. He had been working in the station for years and was familiar with every routine, yet even he could not explain the failures. He discovered unusual entries in system logs, all marked with a human user ID he did not recognize. He frowned. The account was hers, but the log suggested actions no logistics clerk should be capable of. He debated what to do. If he reported it, he might save the remaining humans, or doom them. If he ignored it, he might become a victim. Lena appeared in the corridor as he watched the logs. Her calm face did not change. Her presence gave him no clue. By night, the station's tension had escalated. The Union officers had begun issuing internal warnings. Patrols doubled. Every corridor had at least one officer monitoring it, yet failures continued. Doors opened at the wrong times. Lights flickered. Security bots were found deactivated, their circuits rewired. The officers could not understand how someone managed this. Lena spent hours moving through the darkened sectors. She eliminated patrol units quietly, one by one. Soldiers vanished. No alarms, no struggle, no screams, only silence. Her body moved like water, graceful and unremarkable. Her face betrayed nothing. Officer Reintal began noticing the signature. Each failure happened exactly 40 minutes after a human reported activity in that sector. The pattern was deliberate. The attacker was not only human, but calculating, patient, and precise. He realized the attacker waited for maximum effect before striking. The next morning, the station woke to new chaos. Sensor grids in 3 corridors were completely offline, 2 patrol units were missing, and a weapons storage room had its contents rearranged in impossible ways. Officers began to panic. Ryan suggested a lockdown, but command hesitated. There was no confirmed threat. Lena, of course, moved freely through the station. She worked her way to the upper decks, where the central command hubs were located. She studied the cameras and consoles silently, taking note of patrol patterns, shift changes, and vulnerable points. She never touched a weapon. She did not shout. She did not raise her voice. Her presence alone, unnoticed, made the difference. By afternoon, Reintal narrowed his focus. He realized that the anomalies were centered around sectors commonly accessed by humans, especially maintenance and logistics areas. He concluded the attacker had to be someone familiar with the station's layout and procedures. It could be no one else but a human. Mark Venn, meanwhile, had begun trying to trace the anomalies. He noticed the same sequence: patrols disappearing without warning, sensors failing, security doors locking improperly. He realized someone was orchestrating the chaos deliberately. Yet when he tried to confront the anomalies, he found nothing. No culprit, no fingerprints, no evidence. Unknown. Lena's calm movements masked her deadly precision. She had become a ghost in the station, striking silently, leaving no trace. Her goal was simple: to demonstrate that humans could control their environment without noise, without anger, without shouting. Only results mattered. That night, an entire patrol team entered a restricted corridor to investigate a minor power fluctuation. Within minutes, the team was gone. The AI registered communication lost. Command officers assumed technical failure. The Union leadership refused to panic. But Reintal was different. He reviewed the timeline again. He traced the path of the missing units. All evidence pointed to one small human clerk moving freely across maintenance and logistics sectors. He began to suspect the unimaginable. A single human could be responsible for eliminating an entire wing of security personnel without a trace. Lena, unaware that anyone had begun to suspect her, moved to another part of the station. She accessed a remote console and carefully examined environmental systems, adjusting airflow and energy distribution. These small changes would make later patrols more vulnerable. She smiled faintly at the perfection of her plan. By the end of the second day of orchestrated chaos, the Union officers had begun to discuss the Predator quietly among themselves. They feared an intruder, but had no idea who or where. Their fear grew quietly, like smoke filling a room without fire. Lena returned to her small living quarters for a brief rest. She sat in the darkness, reviewing the maps and logs she had compiled. Every patrol route, every security blind spot, every isolated corridor was documented. Every failure she had caused was noted. She was planning ahead, always ahead, as the station remained unaware that it was slowly being taken apart. When she finally left her quarters again, it was after midnight. The station was quiet, but not asleep. Patrol bots moved mechanically. Lights flickered softly. Alarms were ready to sound, yet they would not reach her. She had ensured that. In the maintenance corridors below, another patrol unit disappeared without warning. 2 security doors jammed simultaneously, trapping the officers inside. By the time help arrived, the unit was gone. The official report would list unknown cause. Lena Hale walked past the chaos without speaking. She carried her slate and pouch, her movements smooth and deliberate. Nothing about her drew attention. She was just another human, quiet and small, in a station of noise and authority. Yet in her silence, the station was already losing. Every missing unit, every failed sensor, every rearranged locker, every blocked corridor was her message. It was simple, quiet, and deadly. By dawn, Officer Rheintal had reached a tentative conclusion. Someone intelligent, patient, and human was responsible. Someone who knew the station better than any Union officer. Someone who would not speak, would not plead, would not beg. Lena Hale had only just begun. No one noticed. No one would notice. Not until it was too late. The Earthborn girl did not raise her voice. Only the body count grew. Lena Hale moved silently through Border Station K-17, her boots making no sound on the polished metal floors. The station felt alive with tension. Patrols were thicker, cameras scanned constantly, and Union officers whispered warnings to each other, but no one knew how close the threat truly was. Lena had already become the shadow they could not see. She paused near the docking bays, watching a convoy of cargo ships maneuver in. Her face remained calm, polite, unremarkable. No one suspected that she had been behind the failures in the lower maintenance sectors. Every door that jammed, every patrol unit that vanished, every sensor that blinked offline had her hand in it, yet she never raised her voice, never threatened, never showed fear or anger. She only planned and executed. The elite response team had arrived. They were the best the Union could spare, armed with advanced weapons and protected by reinforced armor. They had orders to hunt down the intruder responsible for the missing security personnel. Lena had anticipated this. She had studied their arrival times, their patrol formations, their command hierarchy. Every move she made was designed to keep them guessing. In the central corridor, she sabotaged communication nodes, ensuring that patrols could not coordinate effectively. One by one, security doors locked behind the intruding units. Alarms went off in false sectors while her real path remained silent. The elite team moved methodically, but Lena stayed several steps ahead, never once confronting them directly. A human engineer named Mark Venn had begun to understand what was happening. He had traced unusual patterns in system logs and recognized the intelligence behind the attacks. Mark tried to warn the remaining humans on the station, but many dismissed him as paranoid. The Union officers dismissed him as incompetent. Lena, however, allowed him a narrow window. She left a path for him to discover her methods, carefully controlled so he could survive if he followed her subtle instructions. Lena moved to the life support control chambers. The room hummed with energy, tubes and circuits running like veins throughout the station. She studied the panels quietly, noting which systems could be manipulated to create confusion without causing mass casualties immediately. She knew that fear could be more effective than weapons. Silence, uncertainty, and the illusion of danger would break the confidence of even the most seasoned officers. Rheintal, the alien analyst, grew more obsessed with understanding the pattern. He reviewed the logs of missing patrols and sensor failures repeatedly. His data led him to one conclusion. The intruder was small, intelligent, human, and methodical. The very thought shook him. No human had ever managed to eliminate a significant portion of station security without detection. It was impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Meanwhile, Lena set small traps in corridors she knew the elite team would patrol. Panels that appeared normal contained wires that would disable their systems momentarily. Doors that looked locked could open silently behind them, cutting off escape paths. None left fingerprints. None left evidence of force. The team moved through her labyrinth, unaware. The station AI began issuing internal warnings. Reports of missing personnel, sensor failures, and anomalies reached command. Yet none could interpret the subtle manipulation of the systems. The AI marked certain sectors as low risk, while Lena had ensured that the elite units would pass through these zones first. Lena paused to observe a patrol. 4 elite officers moved down a corridor in formation, weapons ready. She watched them through a small maintenance hatch, calculating the timing of their next move. A slight flicker in the lighting panel caused a momentary distraction. The officers froze. One turned to investigate. That was all Lena needed. In less than 30 seconds, the officers were trapped in a small service alcove. Their comms cut off. They could not call for help. Mark then, working from the adjacent maintenance sector, noticed the anomalies and realized what had happened. He ran toward the trapped team, but Lena had already manipulated the access doors. Mark could see the officers, alive but cut off, and understood that Lena had chosen who would live and who would die. She was not reckless. She was calculating, patient, and precise. By the end of the day, several elite units had been neutralized. No shots had been fired in the open. No alarms had sounded outside the false zones. Commanders grew frustrated. They could not find the intruder. The station seemed to be haunted. Lena returned to her quarters briefly, reviewing maps and logs she had compiled over the last several days. Every patrol route, sensor location, and maintenance hatch was documented. Every movement of the elite team had been predicted and manipulated. Her plan was not only survival, it was demonstration. Humanity could be more than the Union assumed. Quiet humans could be precise, intelligent, and unstoppable. Late at night, she moved again. This time, she focused on central command areas. Security drones patrolled the corridors, lights flickered, and cameras scanned, but all failed to detect her presence. She adjusted environmental controls, creating small malfunctions that would delay response time. A heating unit in one sector overloaded slightly. Doors closed and opened at intervals that confused the patrol units. Rheintal observed the growing chaos from the command deck. He saw that the patterns were too deliberate for coincidence. His suspicion solidified into certainty. One human had orchestrated this entire series of events. He tried to track her, but each time he thought he had a lead, the path had changed. The intruder had predicted his moves. Mark Venn continued to follow subtle clues Lena had left, hoping to understand her methods. He realized that she was not attacking recklessly. She was guiding the surviving humans, leaving trails only they could interpret. She was creating a controlled environment where humanity could survive, while demonstrating the cost of underestimating humans. By morning, the elite units were either neutralized or trapped. The Union officers were in disbelief. How could one human move through the station undetected, eliminating patrols and manipulating systems without a sound? The word predator began circulating quietly among the officers. Lena did not celebrate. She moved calmly, checking the paths she had used, ensuring no trace remained. Every corridor, every hatch, every panel was exactly as she needed it to be. Her presence was invisible. Her voice was silent. Her work was deadly. The station remained unaware that its control was slipping. The elite response team had failed. The patrols were disrupted. The sensor grids were compromised, yet the Union leadership believed they still held authority. They had no idea that a single human clerk had already demonstrated that the balance of power had shifted. Mark Venn finally caught up to a small data cache Lena had left behind. He opened it cautiously, discovering logs of every movement, every trap, and every eliminated officer. He realized that she had been preparing for this long before the elite team arrived. Her planning was meticulous. Her patience was endless. As he processed the data, Lena appeared silently behind him. Her face was calm. Her eyes were steady. She said nothing. Mark understood immediately. She had complete control. No one else on the station could match her intellect or precision. The day ended with a tense silence. Patrol units were missing. Commanders were baffled. The elite response team had been defeated without a single public confrontation. Only Lena moved freely, unseen and unchallenged. By midnight, the station was quiet. The only sound came from its engines and the distant hum of passing ships. Lena Hale walked through the corridors, her presence unnoticed, her mind focused on the next phase of her plan. She did not shout. She did not call for attention. She did not need to. The station was hers to shape. The Union officers would soon learn that silence could be more deadly than any weapon, and the humans who survived would see that one Earthborn girl could change the course of their lives without ever raising her voice. The station changed after the elite response team failed. Border Station K-17 no longer felt controlled. It felt nervous. Officers spoke in short sentences. Patrols moved faster but saw less. Doors opened a second too late. Lights dimmed without reason. The Union still claimed authority, but their confidence was cracking. Lena Hale felt it in the air as she walked through the central deck. Fear had a sound. It was quiet, like breath held too long. She wore her usual work uniform. Her slate showed normal tasks. Her steps were unhurried. She passed 3 armed officers who did not look at her twice. To them, she was still nothing. A clerk. A human. Invisible. Below the deck, the trapped elite units waited in sealed corridors. Some were alive, some were not. Lena had chosen which systems to fail and which to hold. She had not rushed. Rushing led to mistakes. Silence did not. Officer Ryan Tal stood in the command hall, staring at a wall of dead screens. His hands were clenched behind his back. He had argued for a full station lockdown hours ago. He had been ignored. Now the station paid the price. The Union commanders argued among themselves. One demanded orbital support. Another insisted the threat was exaggerated. A third blamed faulty systems. None wanted to admit the truth. A single human had broken them. Rin did not say it aloud, but he knew. He had followed the patterns too long to deny it. The intruder had moved like someone raised in places without mercy. Someone who learned early that noise brought death. He pulled up the personnel list again. Humans scrolled past his eyes. Dock workers, cleaners, mechanics, clerks. He stopped. Lena Hale. No criminal record. No military service listed. No disciplinary notes. Born on an outer colony that no longer existed. Ryan felt a chill. Missing data always meant something. At the same time, Lena entered the central life control chamber. The room was wide and circular, filled with glowing panels and slow-moving holograms. It was the heart of the station. Airflow, gravity balance, power distribution. One wrong move here could kill thousands. She stood still and listened to the system's hum. This was where the Union felt safest. That was why it mattered. Lena connected her slate to a side console. The access code accepted her immediately. Logistics clearance was enough. It always was. She began making changes, small and careful. She rerouted emergency power. She delayed fail-safes. She locked command overrides behind layered permissions. She did not shut anything down. Not yet. In another part of the station, Mark Venn moved through a service tunnel, his heart racing. He had seen the data cache Lena left. He had seen the truth. She was not trying to escape. She was not hiding. She was dismantling the station piece by piece. Mark was afraid. Not of Lena, of what would happen when the Union realized how badly they had lost control. He followed the trail she allowed him to see. He knew she could stop him at any time. That was what frightened him most. When Mark reached the outer corridor near the life control chamber, he saw armed guards posted at every entrance. Heavy armor, heavy weapons. The Union was protecting its heart. They were too late. Inside the chamber, Lena finished her work and disconnected her slate. She took a slow breath. For the first time since the cargo bay executions, her hands paused. Images rose in her mind without warning. A small colony dome under a red sky, sirens screaming, armed figures in dark armor walking through fire, her mother pulling her into a storage crawl space and whispering one rule. Do not make a sound. She stayed quiet while everything burned. She stayed quiet while bodies were dragged past the hatch. She stayed quiet while her world ended. Noise did not save anyone. She moved toward the exit. The elite survivors chose that moment to act. 3 armored figures burst through a side entrance, weapons raised, their visors locked onto her. Orders shouted in harsh voices. Freeze. Drop the device. On the floor. Lena stopped walking. She did not raise her hands. She did not speak. The first officer stepped closer. The lights went out. Emergency red flooded the chamber. Systems screamed. Weapons failed to fire. Armor locks engaged at the wrong time. Lena moved. It was fast, controlled, close. She used the environment, the consoles, the tight space. The fight was over before the lights came back on. 3 bodies lay on the floor. Lena stood among them, breathing steady. Outside, alarms finally began to sound. Not because of the fight, because the station AI detected something worse. A full broadcast had been initiated. Every screen on border station K-17 lit up at once. Not with warnings, not with orders, with video. The cargo bay. Days ago. 6 human crew members lined up, unarmed. The Union leader giving the order. The weapons firing. There was no editing, no commentary, just truth. Then numbers appeared. Names, dates, locations, human deaths linked to the Union across multiple stations. The broadcast did not stop at K-17. It pushed outward through every relay the station had access to. Trade hubs, border posts, civilian networks. The galaxy watched. Union commanders shouted for the feed to be cut. Systems refused. Lena had locked them out. Rheintal stared at the screen in horror. He recognized the cargo bay. He had signed off on the inspection report after the fact. He had assumed guilt. He had not questioned it. Now everyone saw. Mark Venn watched from a maintenance terminal, his face pale. He understood then what Lena was doing. This was not revenge alone. It was exposure. In the command hall, Union leaders turned on each other. Accusations flew. Some demanded negotiations. Others called for Lena's capture, alive or dead. Rin left the hall without permission and ran. He reached the life control chamber moments after the fighting ended. He saw the bodies. He saw Lena standing quietly near the console. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Rin asked the question that had burned in him for days. "Why did you not warn us?" he said. "Why not speak? Why not demand justice?" Lena looked at him. Her voice was low and calm. "Talking never saved us." Rhine had no answer. She stepped past him and walked into the corridor. The broadcast continued. Outside the station, ships began to slow. Fleets rerouted. Signals spiked as distant powers reacted. Human settlements erupted in anger. Not loud at first. Organized. Focused. Treaties were questioned. Inspections refused. Cooperation withdrawn. The Union's image cracked across the stars. Inside K-17. Chaos spread. Some officers fled. Others tried to reassert control. It no longer mattered. Lena found Mark near an escape pod bay. He looked at her with fear and understanding mixed together. "You will die if you stay," he said. Lena nodded. She handed him a data chip. "Get the humans out," she said. "Show them everything." Mark hesitated. Then he took it. As the pods launched one by one, Lena turned back toward the station core. Behind her, border station K-17 drifted in silence, its power rerouted, its authority gone. She walked alone toward the heart of the machine. She did not raise her voice. The galaxy was already listening. Border station K-17 no longer belonged to the Union. It still floated in space. Its engines still burned. Its lights still glowed. But control had slipped away, not with explosions or loud battles, but with silence and truth. Across the station, Union officers shouted orders that no one followed. Security channels overlapped and failed. Doors refused commands. Emergency systems answered only to locked permissions they could not override. Lena Hale stood alone near the station core, listening to the distant echo of confusion. She felt no joy, no pride, only focus. The broadcast continued to spread. Beyond K-17, the galaxy reacted. Trade ships slowed and held position. Border fleets stopped advancing. Civilian networks replayed the footage again and again. The execution in the cargo bay. The names. The numbers, the quiet proof of what the Union had done for years. Human settlements reacted first. They did not scream. They did not riot blindly. They organized. Dock workers stopped unloading Union ships. Engineers refused maintenance. Pilots delayed launches. Small actions taken together caused massive disruption. Alien governments watched carefully. Some denied involvement. Others demanded explanations. A few quietly pulled back support. The Union issued statements calling the broadcast false, edited, illegal. No one believed them. Inside the station, Union leadership gathered in a sealed chamber. The room was thick with anger and fear. They demanded Lena's surrender. They promised safety, status, power, a place among them. They threatened retaliation against every human settlement still under Union reach. The message was sent through every channel still open. Lena listened from a control console in the station core. She did not respond. Instead, she continued her work. She moved deeper into the heart of K-17, where power flowed like blood. The core chamber was vast and dim, filled with rotating energy rings and thick conduits that fed the station. This was where gravity, life support, and propulsion met. She accessed the main console and began a long sequence of commands. Not destruction, preparation. Across the station, Mark Venn worked quickly. Escape pods launched in steady waves. Human families filled them quietly. No shouting, no panic. Lena had given him the timing windows, the safe paths, the codes. He followed them exactly. Some humans asked where Lena was. Mark did not answer. Officer Ryan Tall watched the evacuation from a command balcony. His hands shook slightly. Everything he believed about order and control had shattered. The Union had always said humans were emotional and reckless. Yet it was a human who had planned this with patience and restraint. Rin received new orders from Union Command. Find the human woman. Bring her alive. He closed the message and did not move. For the first time in his career, he chose to do nothing. Back in the core, Lena finished locking the last sequence. The station was now trapped in a controlled loop. It could not jump to faster travel. It could not receive external command. It could not be shut down remotely. Only one path remained. She activated a delayed trajectory adjustment. Border Station K-17 began a slow, gentle turn toward the system star. The change was subtle. Most sensors did not register it as a threat. The station would not fall immediately. It would take time, hours, maybe a day, enough time for the message to sink in. Union leaders finally understood. They sent desperate messages. Threats turned into pleas. Pleas turned into bargaining. They asked Lena what she wanted. She opened a single channel. Her face appeared on screens across the station. Calm, still, unmarked. She did not shout. She did not insult them. She spoke one sentence. Let the humans go. Nothing more. Mark Venn confirmed the final escape pod launch. Every human registered on K-17 was gone. He sent the signal Lena had asked for. Done. Lena closed her eyes for a brief moment, then she changed the system priority. The station core sealed. Union leaders screamed for access. Their commands were ignored. Weapons powered down. Internal transport froze. Some tried to flee. Their ships could not launch. Dock clamps refused release. Rintal watched the chaos unfold and felt something break inside him. He understood now. This was not cruelty. This was consequence. Lena left the core chamber and walked through empty corridors toward the inner control ring. The station hummed steadily, unaware of its fate. Artificial gravity held. Air flowed. Ah, da. Everything felt normal. That was the worst part. She passed through halls where she had once been ignored, where she had lowered her eyes, where she had stayed quiet to survive. Now there was no one left to see her. In the inner ring, she stopped and looked out through a narrow viewport. The star ahead burned bright and steady. Her thoughts returned to the past again. The colony dome, the fire, her mother's hand covering her mouth, the sound of boots, the silence that saved her life. She had learned then that noise drew attention. Silence endured. Behind her, emergency lights flickered as systems began to strain. The station was fighting the slow change in trajectory. It could not stop it. Union officers finally broke into the inner ring, a small group, desperate and armed. They surrounded Lena. She did not resist. They demanded she reverse the course. She shook her head once. They threatened her life. She did not answer. One officer raised his weapon. Dowd. Rintal stepped between them. Enough, he said. The officer hesitated. Command authority was meaningless now. Lena looked at Rhine. You should leave, he said quietly. She nodded. There was one escape pod left, a small maintenance pod with limited range, enough to clear the station. Not enough to reach a populated world. Rhine escorted her toward it. No one stopped them. The others were too afraid, too confused. At the pod bay, Rin paused. You could still survive, he said. Lena looked at the pod, then back at the station. No, she said. She handed him a final data chip. This is everything, she said. Names, records, proof. Do something better with it. Rhine took it with shaking hands. Then she turned and walked away. The pod launched without her. Minutes later, the inner ring sealed automatically. Rin watched from the departing pod as border station K-17 drifted alone toward the star. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Not the silence of ignorance, the silence of understanding. Human fleets did not attack. Boop-boo! They did not celebrate. They simply arrived at borders and stopped. They stood their ground. Alien powers hesitated. Trade routes shifted. Old assumptions broke. Hours later, border station K-17 crossed the point of no return. Its final signal was a simple data burst. Names, dates, a number. The confirmed body count. Then nothing. No one ever found Lena Hale's body. Some said she died in the core. Others said she vanished into the station's hidden systems. It did not matter. The message had already been delivered. The Earthborn girl never raised her voice. She did not need to. The galaxy had heard her clearly. Border Station K-17 was gone. Not exploded, not burned, not torn apart. It had drifted too close to its star, consumed slowly by its own weight and the laws of physics. Fragments of metal and twisted machinery spread across the system, small pieces reflecting the sun like dying fireflies. No one alive had witnessed its final moments, but everyone knew the story. The broadcast that Lena Hale had sent weeks ago now circulated across the galaxy. Ships in every sector replayed it. Trade outposts showed it on their public screens. Every civilized system, every council, every fleet had seen what the Union had done and what one human could do in silence. The video needed no narration. The numbers spoke clearly. The names spoke clearly. The pattern of deaths spoke clearly. In human settlements across several star systems, people paused, then acted. They did not shout. They did not riot in blind anger. They acted with quiet precision. Dock workers refused to process Union cargo. Engineers halted maintenance schedules. Fleet captains delayed jumps. Every small, coordinated refusal caused ripple effects. Humans no longer begged for respect. They demanded it with action. Rin Tao watched from the observation deck of a distant Union station. His hands rested lightly on the console, but his mind was heavy. He had spent years believing in control, in authority, in order enforced by fear. He had been wrong. He realized that humans, even a single human, could unbalance the most meticulous systems without raising a voice. He thought of Lena Hale. He thought of the calm face, the steady hands, the invisible presence. She had not shouted. She had not begged. She had only acted. Mark Venn traveled back toward safe human space, carrying the final data chip Lena had given him. He watched the stars move past slowly and thought of her. He thought of the planning, the precision, the patience. He remembered her calm words. Talking never saved us. Now he understood what she meant. Words were weak. Actions were strong. Galactic powers reacted slowly at first. Some refused to acknowledge the broadcast, insisting it had been edited, falsified, or fabricated. Others quietly withdrew fleets from disputed zones. A few even contacted human colonies for verification. No one doubted the authenticity for long. The simplicity of the evidence, the names, the dates, the facts, spoke louder than any propaganda ever could. Back on the scattered remains of K-17, the station's AI continued to hum in isolated loops. Emergency systems had recorded every action Lena had taken, every rerouted circuit, every disabled weapon, every manipulated corridor. But no system could interpret intent. The AI recorded what happened. It did not know why. Humans arrived at Union-controlled borders, not to attack. They stood their ground. They repaired what they could, reclaimed resources, and organized defense. Their presence alone forced Union fleets to pause. They realized that aggression against humanity now carried consequences beyond what they could calculate. In private quarters on one distant human station, Mark Venn opened the data chip. Names, records, logs of K-17, the broadcast files, notes of every maneuver. He understood that this was a map, a lesson, and a warning. Every human who saw it learned that calm intelligence, patience, and observation could overcome brute force. No gun, no fleet, no threat of violence was required. Only strategy and resolve. Rheintal remained on his station, unsure if he would ever see Lena Hale again. The calm, small, earthborn woman who had altered the course of human and alien relations had disappeared. Some suspected she had died in the core of K-17. Others whispered that she had somehow found a way to integrate herself into the station's hidden systems, invisible, untouchable, untethered. No one had proof. None could find her. In the days that followed, trade and communication patterns shifted. Human fleets established new patrol routes, outposts reinforced borders, colonies coordinated quietly, preparing for the long-term protection of their people. The Union attempted to maintain control with official statements, but no one trusted them. Their authority had been fractured. The story of Lena Hale became legend among humans. Children watched the stars at night and asked about the quiet woman who changed everything. They were told she had acted when others would not. that she had proven one human could unbalance an empire without raising a voice. Her calm and her silence were more powerful than weapons or threats. The galaxy did not forget the events of K-17. Every fleet, every council, every merchant convoy remembered the lesson. Humans could act with precision, patience, and deadly efficiency. They did not need loud commands. They did not need speeches. They acted, and the consequences followed. On a small human colony, a child pointed at the sky and asked, "Why are aliens afraid now?" The answer was simple: because one Earthborn girl proved that humans do not need to shout to be heard. Her name was Lena Hale. Her body was never found. Her presence remained a quiet shadow, a story of intelligence, patience, and resolve. The station was gone. The fleets were aware. The humans had survived. And the galaxy understood that actions, not words, were the measure of true strength. Across the stars, the legacy of K-17 endured. And in that silence, the Earthborn girl had already won.